Hi, welcome to our webinar on collaborative filtering. It's our pleasure to have you here with us once again. Throughout this webinar, we are going to share with you our knowledge on how collaborative filtering can be one of the ways to turn your visitors into customers. Before we start this meeting, I'd like to ask you a couple of things. Please make sure you take notes of all the questions and queries you may have throughout this webinar. And once this webinar ends, please make sure that you share all of them with us by email so that we can help you even more. Also, once this webinar ends, please don't forget to provide us your honest feedback through email. It's extremely important for us to have your honest feedback so that we can keep improving our next webinars and interactions with you. And who are all going to be here talking to you today? I'll be your hostess. My name is Carolina Araripe. I'm Inbound Marketing Strategist here at Tatwick. We're also going to have Amar Gondelia. He's one of the data model engineers. And also Kushan Shah, who is one of our web analysts. I believe you may remember of them from our last webinar, where they were sharing their knowledge with us on predictive analytics, right? So, what are we going to see throughout this webinar that is going to be extremely helpful about collaborative filtering? First, Kushan is going to explain us why are we here talking about collaborative filtering. Why is it extremely important for e-commerce stores? Then, Amar is going to show us how to deploy collaborative filtering through the usage of R on your e-commerce store. Then, again, Kushan will come to show us the different applications of collaborative filtering and also all its advantages. So, should we start? So, hi Kushan, thank you very much for being here with us once again. Can you please give us a small background, a briefing of why are we here discussing on collaborative filtering, please?
Sure. Thank you, Carol. Hello, everyone. We are here to talk about collaborative filtering today, and before I dive into this topic, allow me to give you a brief background on the problem that we are intending to discuss. So, for e-commerce stores that operate primarily on a B2C model, being customer-centric is very important because this approach of customer centricity translates into customer satisfaction, and in the long term, it leads to increased sales. So, one of the questions faced by a lot of e-commerce stores boils down to how do you make the customer happy? What do you think, Carol? As a customer, what do you expect from an e-commerce store?
Well, Kushan, as I'm not an impulsive buyer, what happens to me is that I spend a lot of time researching for the products, trying to find the best products for me. And in my case, it would be very helpful if the e-commerce stores could help me to save some time.
Yes. The problem that you just described is what is known in economics as the paradox of choice. This stems from the fact that when there are a large number of items in the store catalog, the customers tend to browse only the top viewed or the most popular products.
Yeah, Kushan, it's funny to see this slide because we can see Mr. Burns' picture here, and this is exactly how I feel when I go to an e-commerce store. I have too many options, and I kind of have an idea of what I want, but I end up being too confused, and sometimes I end up not buying anything at all.
Yes. So a popular article on the e-consultancy blog cites the fact that only 10% of the products in an online store garner 75% of the page views. So essentially what this means that if your customers are not able to get to the correct product that they want to buy, they end up not buying anything. Now, I understand that not everyone operates at the scale of Amazon and has a very, very large store catalog. But even if you are a medium-sized online retailer, showing the right product to your customer is essential and does impact your bottom line. So, what can be done in this case is we need to narrow down the choices by finding out those products that matter most to your consumers. How do you do this? Well, we have been collecting a lot of data regarding our customers' browsing activities on your e-commerce website. Let us try to put that to use in the later part of this webinar. So you might have gotten an intuitive idea that we are moving towards the idea of product recommendations, and until now what has been done in this space is that recommendations were either generated manually, that is to say people manually entered recommended products in the database, but this approach was not at all data driven, and the other downside was that the recommendations remain static for each and every user. So for some users what happened is that these recommendations might not be relevant at all. Another popular approach was to use association rules to find out baskets of items which are being bought together. This approach, although data driven, misses out on an important aspect. I think if you are finding out co-occurring items in the shopping basket, you tend not to concentrate on what customers or what types of customers are keen on buying those items. So association rules miss out on the fact that what user preferences are associated with what types of items. So let us try to think how we can move forward from here. Let us step back a little and forget that we are shopping online. Carol, when you intend to buy a product, whom do you usually ask for reviews?
Well, Kushan, whenever I need to buy something or I want to buy something, I go for my friends and I ask them. To the friends that I have an idea that they know the product, they have purchased the product, and then I go for them to have their honest opinion, because for me they are the best ones to advise me.
Yes. So word of mouth plays a very important role in influencing our buying decisions offline. So what if we could extend this concept to the online world? Now, technically, you might not have friends who have been shopping on the same e-commerce stores as you do, but there might always be people with similar buying interests. And this idea of finding out people with similar buying interests leads us to collaborative filtering. It is a technique of grouping customers based on their buying preferences, and then we find out what items have been bought by that particular group of consumers once we have grouped them into a couple similar groups. And then we use this data to make automatic predictions to newer incoming customers. So the customers' buying preferences are taken into account as well.
Okay, Kushan, thank you very much for explaining us a bit more about collaborative filtering. So now that we understand how it works, can you please share with us an example of how it works in the real online world, please?
Yes. So I was just browsing for a smartphone on Amazon.com, and as you can see, once I am on the product page for example, on Apple iPhone 5, then I'm presented with a list of product recommendations that have been generated using this idea of collaborative filtering.
Oh, so what you're telling here is that these recommendations are not here because of some coincidence. They are here because of some codes. There are the codes behind it. I've always thought it was kind of coincidence, you know.
Yes, there is an algorithm behind this. What happens is Amazon has learned my buying preferences over time by tracking my behavior and my clicking behavior on their platform, and they have used this data to make predictions when I am browsing for newer and newer products. So technically Amazon uses a variant of collaborative filtering, but the higher level idea is the same.
Okay. Now I can understand a bit more about it.
Okay. So that was the example of one of collaborative filtering. And once collaborative filtering has been implemented on an e-commerce store, it can be used in a wide variety of ways, as illustrated in this slide here. So it can be used for making product recommendations, as we just discussed. It could also be used to personalize your e-commerce store's landing page for each of your customers. Moreover, if you have an online newsletter that you have been delivering regularly to make the customers updated of the various offers on your store, then customizing those offers using collaborative filtering is also an effective way to optimize your email communications. Then it could also be used in making cross-sell recommendations on the checkout page that you could use to effectively increase the average order value for your store. And yes, I forgot to include one more point as well. If your e-commerce store has a mobile app, then using collaborative filtering is a very good way to reach out to your customers who have been interacting with your site via their smartphones. So I hope this has given you an insight into what collaborative filtering is and how it can prove to be valuable to your store.
Okay, Kushan, thank you very, very much. I believe it was really helpful for our audience here. Okay, so now that we know a bit more about collaborative filtering and how it's important for your e-commerce store, let's take a deep dive and see how we can implement it on your e-commerce website. So for that, I'd like to call Amar here. So hi Amar, thank you very much for being here with us once again. Can you please show to our audience how to implement collaborative filtering on their websites through the usage of R?
Sure, Carol. And thank you, Kushan, for explaining about collaborative filtering and its approach, how it can be used to your e-commerce stores in order to recommend the products to your customers. So Kushan explained about the collaborative filtering. I will go through the implementation part of collaborative filtering model using R. So let me start with the steps of implementation. Let me give the basic idea about collaborative filtering. Kushan has just explained about how collaborative filtering can be used to your e-commerce store, but I would like to tell about a little bit on collaborative filtering. We assume that users with similar preferences rate items similarly. So for given customer A, algorithm will find a set of customers who have purchased or rated similar items in the past. Then the items bought by these similar customers are aggregated. Now, algorithm will eliminate items that customer A has already purchased and the present rest of the other items, or recommend the rest of the other items to given customer. So this is the basic idea behind the collaborative filtering. Finding the similar customers and finding the items they like and then present those items to this given customer. Let me start with the implementation step. So these are the implementation steps. First is the data preparation, in which I will talk about the data collection and rating matrix creation. Second is model creation, in which I will create user-based collaborative filtering model. Then similarity calculation, where we will find the similar users using similarity metric, in which I will use a cosine similarity metric, and find the nearest neighbor of given customer using k nearest neighbor. Then we try to predict the missing ratings for the items for which user has no preference yet, and then recommend top n products to given customer or every user. And finally, I will talk about evolution of a collaborative filtering model, where we will discuss about how we can evaluate recommender model that we created, in which I will use error metric, which represents the accuracy of collaborative filtering model. In this case, I will use mean of average error and root mean square error. So let me start with the first step of implementation, which is data preparation, and let me start with the data collection part. So in order to perform a collaborative filtering algorithm, we need user ratings for the item. We can get this rating by two ways, either explicitly asking for ratings to the users, or we can observe user behavior. First approach is very time consuming because it requires too many actions in order to give ratings, and the ratings in this approach are likely to bias, means some users will give the ratings and some users will not. And this approach is very difficult to implement in practice. So instead of it, we can use another approach, and we can observe the user behavior, in which we identify the affinity of users for that particular product. So we need to identify the data points that indicates user affinity for that product, and we can generate the rating based on those metric or those data points. And this approach is very easy to implement. So let me talk about how we can calculate this rating, or which is a representation of user interest. So assume that we have a formula to calculate the rating, x plus by plus cz, where x, y, z represents the metrics that capture user behavior, and abc represents relative weight. So if we have these data points x, y, z, then we can create the rating based on this formula. So we need to identify these metrics. So let me talk about these metrics, which metrics we can use in order to derive the ratings. So these are the metrics: add to cart, which represents that how many times user has added product to the cart; add to wish list, which means that has user added product to the wish list or not; zoom product image, repeat page use of product detail page, and days since last visit. And the relative weights are presented here. So we can create the rating like 0.4 into add to cart plus 0.3 into add to wish list, and so on. So we can calculate the rating which represents the interest of user for that particular product. So let me show those data points so we can get a better idea about those data points. So in this CSV file, you can see that user ID, item ID, and these are the metrics which are derived for this particular user and item: add to cart, add to wish list, zoom product image, product page views, days since last visit, and finally we have a rating created based on these data points. So in this data set, we are interested to use user ID, item ID, and the rating. Here rating represents the interest of user. So we will use this. So let me back to the PPT and go to the next step. So next step comes rating matrix creation. Rating matrix is another representation of these data points. It will contain ratings for the particular user and particular item. So let me show it how it look like. So we can see that rows represents user ID, and column represents item ID, and value represents the rating, which is the ultimate interest of user for that particular product. So we can say that user ID 2 has given rating 2 for item ID 6. So this is rating matrix which is required in order to create a recommender model. So let me go to the R Studio and create a recommender model, or create this rating matrix first. Here I am using R, and R is very useful tool to do this type of analysis. In our previous webinar, we talked more about this R, and we also given some use cases in order to use R, and too many things. So here I am using recommender lab package, which is used to generate a collaborative filtering model. So we need to install it. In my case, I have already installed it. So let me load that package here first. So you can see that my package is being loaded. Now let me load the data set. Here I am using another data set for the purpose of explanation of collaborative filtering. I am using other data set. So let me load it and view that data set. So my data sets are loaded in workspace. We can view this data set. So you can see that data set contains user, item, and rating, which is interest of user for this particular item. Now let me create the rating matrix which I just described. So I will use this command to create the rating matrix. So my rating matrix is stored in variable R, which tells that rating matrix contains data of 5,000 users and 100 products. So this is the rating matrix. Let me back to the slide and move ahead. The next step comes model creation. So once we generate the rating matrix, we can use this rating matrix to generate the recommender model. So let me back to the RStudio and create a recommender model. Here I am using this command to generate recommender model, and the parameter will be stored in variable fit. So let me execute this command. So now my model is created and it is already stored in fit. So we have done with the model creation part. Let me move ahead. Next step comes similarity calculation. Here we identify the similar users, and we calculate the similarity based on some metric. Here I will use cosine similarity. So let me talk about cosine similarity, how it works. So recall that user versus item rating matrix. So users are represented in row and items are represented in a column. So here is my active user, which is named UA. So I want to identify the similar user of these active users. So, and I will use a cosine similarity metric to identify the similar user for of this active user. So let's say we want to identify the similarity between user A and user 1. So we will represent this both user in form of vectors. So user 1 is represented as vector X and active user is represented as vector Y. Vector contains rating. So I was talking about these two vectors. So my user 1 is represented as vector X and active user represented as vector Y. So the similarity between these two vectors is calculated using cosine. Here a little bit mathematics comes in picture, but it is not hard to understand. Here I have represented both this vector in a form of a graph. So we can see that vector X and vector Y, and angle between these two vectors represents the similarity between two of them, and it is calculated using this function. Okay, so we can say that as this angle is lower, the similar user they are. The similarity is calculated using cosine. Once the similarity is calculated between every users, we need to identify the nearest neighbor of active user. So let's say that we have calculated the similarity, but we are interested into identifying the most similar users. So we can use the nearest neighbor in order to identify the most similar users. In this case, you can see that user 1, user 4, and user 3 are similar user, and they are identified using some similarity threshold, which is represented by similarity. So we have identified the similar users. So now we want to predict missing ratings for the items for the current user, for which user has no preference yet. So let me do that. In this case, we can say that we have identified the 3 similar users: user 1, user 3, and user 4 of this active user. Now, based on these similar users, we will try to predict the missing ratings for the item for active user. So in this case, active user has no preference for item 2, item 1, item 5, and item 7. So we can calculate this missing rating. So let me take example here. The missing rating for item 1 is calculated based on average rating of the other similar users. So in this case, user 3 and user 4 has given rating 3 and 4 for this item 1. So we can take average of these 2 and represents the rating for this active user, because we assume that the similar user will rate items similarly. So here the missing rating is calculated based on these ratings of similar users. So similarly, we can calculate for the rest of the other items. So we can see that for the other items, ratings are calculated here. Now we want to recommend those items which have higher ratings. So we will recommend the top end rating items. In this case, item 2 and item 1 have a higher rating, so they will be recommended to the active user. So we can see that we identified the similar users and recommended the items that they like. So ultimately, we are observing the user behavior and try to recommend those items, and ultimately we are initiating user to buy these items, and we are increasing the engagement of this active user, which is ultimately good for our e-commerce store. So let me do these things in RStudio and try to predict the items for the given users. So I will use this function, this command. So recommendations are stored in REC, right? So let us view which items are recommended to the given users. So we can see that for the user 1 and these 5 items are top 5 items are recommended, and for user 2 these 5 items are recommended. So we have done with the similarity calculation, because this function automatically finds the similar users and predict the missing ratings, and then list out the top 5 products for the given customers. So let me back to the slides. Until now, we understand about collaborative filtering and algorithm, and also predicted the missing ratings and recommended the items. But we don't know about evaluation of recommender model, because evaluation of a recommender model is a very important part in modeling process. As our recommender model will be accurate, the good prediction it will give, and ultimately we want to recommend those items to our customers which they like. So this step is very crucial. So let me talk about the evaluation of recommender model. So in order to evaluate the recommender model, we need to split the data set, original data set, in two parts. So we can create the model on the first part and test on the rest of the other part. So the first part is the training set, which represents 90% of original data set, and second part is a testing set, which represents 10% of original data set. Model will be created based on this training set, and it will be evaluated on the testing set. So we can identify the accuracy of recommender model, and accuracy is calculated in many ways, but here I am using error metric, which represents the effectiveness of the model. We can use mean of average error or root mean square error, and there is a formula of this mean average error and root mean square error is given here. So let me do this thing in RStudio. Recommender Lab provides some function in order to generate evaluation scheme, in which it will split the data automatically, and we can create the model based on those splitting. So here I am using this command. So the evaluation scheme is generated and it is stored. So let me build the recommender model on the trained data set. So let me use this command. So now my recommender model is created on the training data set. Let me try to predict the missing ratings for the test data set using this model created on the training data set. So I will use this function and store the rating in a test underscore rating. Now let me calculate the error, and the error will be as I described about we can use the mean of average error or a root mean square error. So here let me store these values in variable error. So let us retrieve these errors. We can see that mean of average error is 3.57 and the root mean square error is 4.56, which represents that our model is good because the errors are low. We cannot set any threshold for this matrix, but we can say that as these errors are low, our recommender model will be good, and it will recommend the good items to the particular users. So we seen the implementation of collaborative filtering recommender model. We went through some of the steps: data preparation, rating matrix creation, model generation, similarity calculation, prediction, and then finally we evaluate the model also. So these were the steps of recommender model creation. We also discussed about evaluation of matrix, evaluation of recommender model. Here we have one advantage, that as much as we have data, we can evaluate this model using this error metric, and we can have better model based on those data set. But offline metric may not reflect business goal, which means that we can not rely on this error metric at all time. Kushan will explain more about this disadvantage. So let me pass over to the Kushan, and thank you very much for listening me.
Thank you, Amar, for walking us through this entire process of the implementation of collaborative filtering. So while Amar just described two metrics to evaluate the model performance for the collaborative filtering model, these error metrics may not always capture the business goal that you are trying to optimize. So, for example, your e-commerce store is unique, and based on your objectives, you might be trying to optimize for either conversion rate, average order value, or some other KPI that you think is important. So, we need to be very cognizant of whether collaborative filtering is helping you implement to reach these goals or not. And doing this requires an improvement in the algorithm from time to time. While improving the algorithm is a very extensive process and might is actually a very deep topic, and it can take an entire webinar to explain algorithm improvement. I wanted to briefly share with you a three-step process or a three-step outline that might give you some pointers in this direction. So the first step involves offline testing with respect to the error metrics that Amar described. The second step involves collecting user surveys, and this can be done by asking the users explicitly whether they liked the recommendations or not, and this forms a small feedback loop between the model and the users. So while the thing with user surveys is that these might we have to reach a proper statistical significance in order to get a complete picture of the model. So the third step that can be very well implemented is that we need to perform online testing for these recommendations on the customers, and this can be done by measuring the click-through rate and the conversion rate for the recommended products. So these were the three steps that I wanted to briefly outline regarding algorithm improvement. Now a question that arises out of this is that since we have the results of the model with us, how do we implement collaborative filtering on the e-commerce website? So what we did in this entire process is that we had input data in the form user ID, item ID, and rating. We applied collaborative filter model to it and converted it into an output format, user ID versus the recommended products. So once we have identified recommended products for the customers, and now the task in front of us is to serve these recommendations when the users are when the customers are browsing the site. This can be done by loading the results into a database with user ID as the primary key, and then querying this database for each of your user. So in essence, the recommendation engine becomes an integral component of the e-commerce site backend. So we started with the problem of getting the users to find their item of interest, and also the other allied problem was that we wanted to get the item provider deliver their item to the correct user. So once that is done via collaborative filtering, what is the value that this provides to your e-commerce store? The KPI that is most important to business owners that I feel is conversion rate, and it is indeed increased since customers are now able to quickly find out relevant items of their interest. Moreover, if you are bundling products together, then it has an impact on the average order value as well. Moreover, email marketing newsletters typically suffer from this problem of having a very low open rate. So if you are customizing those newsletters via collaborative filtering, then these two become more effective. If your store has a mobile app, then collaborative filtering can help you increase your outreach as well. All of this translates into happy and satisfied customers, and in turn a higher user engagement. The last point that I wanted to emphasize is that for any e-commerce store, there might be a number of products in the long tail, and collaborative filtering can help you increase the conversion rate for those products as well. So that's about it from my side. Back to you, Carol.
Okay. I'd like to thank you both, Kushan and Amar, very, very much once again for your presence here today. Okay? So, guys, as I told you before, I hope you have took all your notes, okay, of your question and queries. And please feel free to be sharing all of them through with us through sending them to my email, and then I will send them to to our experts here. Okay? Because we are really looking forward to helping you even more. Okay? So, and I'd also like to tell you about our upcoming webinar, which will be on anomaly detection. Okay? It will be on the 21st of August at 9 a.m. PDT. And for more information, you can access our webinars section on our website. Okay? And this webinar will be also focused on e-commerce stores. Okay? Thank you very, very much once again. We are looking forward to seeing you in our upcoming webinars. Okay? And feel free to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Google Plus to be even more aware of our upcoming events. Okay? Thank you very much for your presence here. See you very soon.